You're listening to Big World Network.
Accidental Passion, Episode 4, New Passion. Read by Meagan Hedin. Warning! Although there is no material subject matter within that couldn't be found in any general bookstore with no age constraint, this series is rated 18 and contains adult situations and content. It is intended for mature audiences only and should not be read if you are uncomfortable with graphic sexual intimacy. Kevin spent the day in bed with Kim, never saying a word. In fact, she too had slept in and had taken a nap during the day, neither discussing the events of the previous evening. Despite the scare, Kevin had visited the tank in the basement once during the day for a quick hit of nitrous oxide before going back to bed, and then he made the decision to give up using the nitrous for good. It wasn't his near-death experience that caused him to make the decision. He knew he could avoid that happening again since it was all due to pure carelessness. Instead, it was his inability to grow hard while a hot 20-something went down on him, a thought he just couldn't let go of. It kept coming back to him, and he didn't ever want to face that embarrassment again. What good was the Porsche dental practice and monthly waxing of his chest if he wasn't able to get it up when getting a blowjob, he thought to himself as he lay in bed. By 2 in the afternoon, he made up his mind to make some major changes in his life. In his early 40s, he wasn't going to have too many more years left where he could enjoy himself and the pleasures of the younger women he desired. He knew it was shallow, but he didn't care. He wanted younger women and wanted to recapture his youth, but with the luxuries and lifestyle he had achieved with his age. Yes, it was time for some major life changes, he thought, as he slid his hand under the sheet. He manipulated himself until he grew, making sure there was nothing wrong and that it had been just a result of the nitrous the night before. A knocking caused Woods to open his eyes. Looking around an unremarkable dark hotel room, it took him a moment to remember where he was. He wasn't at home in L.A., he realized, as someone knocked again. Still tired from the previous night's events, followed by a day at the district attorney's office to clear up the weapons issue and out-of-state PI license, he was extremely tired even after a few hours of sleep. But the day had been a good one. The Detroit DA's office had been extremely decent with him, making it clear he was guilty of no wrongdoing in the shooting. It probably helped when they learned he used to be a detective in the Los Angeles Police Department. Now, fumbling his way to the hotel room door in the dark, he wondered if it was the police knocking on his door with more questions. Opening the door, he was greeted by a short, beautiful brunette. The same brunette who worked as an airline ticket agent. The same brunette he had gone out with to get Kim's name from the flight manifest. And the same brunette he had made love to. Woods liked the girl and was happy, if not surprised, to see her standing at his door. He really had liked her, and it hadn't just been a means to an end going out with her. He genuinely enjoyed her company, and was extremely attracted to her tiny petite body and cute smile. But, since he lived in L.A., he hadn't allowed himself to become attached and, out of fairness, had made it clear to her that it wouldn't last after he returned home. But here she was, and he was glad. "I thought I would say goodbye to you properly," she said. She being Deanna, airline ticket agent and gorgeous brunette. Still half asleep and dressed only in a t-shirt and dark blue boxers, Woods moved to the side so Deanna could enter the dark hotel room. Once she was in, he let go of the door, allowing it to close with a resounding click. Standing just inside the door, there was no light except for the little bit coming from the orange nightlight inside the bathroom, barely visible through the open door. Blocking his way into the main part of the room, Deanna turned and looked up at him. "I had to see you one more time," she smiled, running a hand up under his t-shirt to touch his chest, brushing over his right nipple as she pulled him towards her with her other arm. Woods immediately felt himself growing hard, her hand on his chest feeling so good. His lips met hers as she pulled him into her, and he kissed her gently at first, positioning her lower lip between his and pulling on it ever so slightly. Hearing her breath escape as he pulled away turned him on even more, and he moved in again, this time more passionately, letting his tongue push between her lips and meet the tip of hers, waiting and willing. Still standing in the hallway beside the bathroom door in the dark, Woods moaned slightly as Deanna's hand slid down from his chest over the outside of his boxers, which were tented up. Through the cotton fabric, she wrapped her tiny hand around his cock and gave it a squeeze before reaching inside the fly to bring it out through the opening. As they stood there kissing, more and more passionately, full of mutual desire, she stroked him while he ran his hands up her back and worked his fingers into her hair. He wanted her so badly now. Her smell, taste, sounds of pleasure, soft skin, were all more than he could stand. Sensing his desire, Deanna stopped stroking his cock, kissed him one more time, and slid down to her knees, taking him completely into her mouth in one smooth motion until his trimmed hair was tickling her nose. At the incredible sensation of the sudden warmth and complete engulfing of him into her mouth, Woods let out a long, slow moan of pleasure. As she continued, pulling back to run the tip of her tongue around the base of his head and then completely engulfing him again, he knew he wouldn't last long. She seemed aware of this and showed no sign of slowing down or stopping, seemingly content with finishing him. But he wanted more. He needed more. He wanted to feel that closeness with her, to feel his body next to her petite, smooth frame, to feel her passion, and, most of all, he wanted to taste her again, give her incredible pleasure. He loved when she moved her hips, pushing up against him, very clearly enjoying his lips and tongue on her. Gently pushing her back until she reluctantly let him slip out of her mouth, Woods pulled her up to him, kissing her deeply. Breaking the kiss, he slid her top and bra off, exposing her small but very attractive breasts. It was his turn to run a hand up from her belly and over her nipple as they kissed, and she once again took him in her hand, stroking him slowly. Not being able to stand it any longer, he took her by the hand to lead her to the bed, laid her down, and pulled her jeans and panties off in one clean motion as she lifted her hips for him. Not wasting any time, he kissed his way back up from the inside of her leg at her knee to between her legs. As he kissed below a small trimmed tuft of hair she kept, he could feel and taste that she was already very wet, creating so much excitement in him. Her taste was amazing, and the way she moved her body and breathed haggardly from the pleasure was such a turn-on, knowing he was having that effect on her with only his lips and tongue. Feeling his hard cock jump from desire, he moved up, kissing just below her belly button, then just under the curve of her breast, and finally to her lips. As he slid his cock inside her, boxer still on, she simultaneously entered his mouth with her tongue, eagerly tasting herself. This, too, turned him on beyond belief. She was incredible, and he hated the thought of never being able to share this with her again. Their speed, force, and passion increased until reaching a final peak, and he felt himself release with pulse after pulse, deep inside her as she also came, digging her fingernails deep into his back. Moments later, as they caught their breath, Wood slid out of her and rolled onto his back as she lifted her head to rest it on his shoulder with his arm under her. He was still hard, sticking out of his boxers, which were wet around the opening. She gently wrapped her fingers around him, holding him as he gradually grew soft in her hand. Leaning up to kiss him, she whispered, "I hate to give this up, Mr. P.I. It's just too good." "I know," Wood said, returning her kiss.
This has been a presentation of Big World Network. Visit us on BigWorldNetwork.com for more free weekly series, or follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Big World Network.